if you can take us back to McGill. When you joined McGill and when you decided to join the football team, what sort of discussions were happening around initiation rites or hazing or any of that?
I mean, there was this rumor going around that at the end of training camp there'd be a proctology exam with Dr. Broom for every entering rookie who made the cut, and it was kind of lord over us the entire time. What really shocked me was that it was mentioned in front of coaching staff and support staff, trainers, things like that, which kind of reinforced what I suspected, or what I had suspected at the time, which is that it was all kind of mental warfare, trying to mess with their head a little bit before training camp concluded.
So you never thought they'd actually go through with something like this? It was just a threat?
I thought that if they had been smart enough to get into McGill and all that, that yes, they would have been smart enough to know that something like that is not appropriate.
Can you walk us through what actually happened to you?
Yeah, so it started after a mandatory team dinner in one of the dining halls. And from that point, they had all the rookies take off their shirts, hold hands, and skip down to the athletic center while calling us homophobic slurs. They then led us into these basically squash courts, which are holding pens, and told us to hold the penny to the wall with our nose. And every time someone dropped it, it would be another inch with Dr. Broom.
So you can't really see much if you have your nose against the wall, but what was your sense of how many people were there?
So I was in basically a holding pen with the other rookies. One by one, we were taken out to the squash court next door, where we basically had almost like a spotlight on us, and couldn't really see much beyond that. And we saw there were a couple of team captains and some veterans on the floor, and then there were other members of the teams up in the stands. If I had to estimate, somewhere between 30 and 60 all in. What was going through my head at that time is that even before I was let into the room was that, this was all a joke, a thing to mess with us more than a reality. And, it wasn't until I got in there and they tell me to strip down and tell me to shove a dog chew toy in my mouth and bend over that, it kind of came to a reality.
And you stopped them?
I left right after. And later I found out that because of my leaving, they ended up shutting down the initiation that night and taking everyone out somewhere. So I didn't stop all of it, but there were limited people who experienced what I experienced because of my leaving.
Have you been able to wrap your head around what the difference would be that would make you be the person to try to stop this when so many other people didn't, and those 30 or 60 people watching didn't put the brakes on this either?
A lot of those people in the room, I don't doubt, especially the athletes who were a year ahead of me, had probably been through the same thing. I know I had one other teammate tell me, yeah, it's real, it happens, it's awful, you deal with it, you move on. And through talking to some other people who've gone through different hazings through the time since McGill, what I've come to realize is that everyone handles things differently. And it's your right to choose how you bounce through this.
Walk me through what was happening when you first heard about St. Mike's.
Hearing the news about St. Mike's was tough for me. During my time there, I never experienced anything like what's come out in the past few days, nor had I heard about other people going through it while I was there. So hearing that happens there is a flood of emotions. It's disappointment that it could happen at a place that I felt was so safe. It was frustration that these things are still going on. I can't explain why people think this is team building, but it's not. And it really just creates a culture of bullying and, just keeps the ugly tradition going. And, it keeps crimes under the guise of the term hazing when they should be called out for what they are, assault.
The police today made reference to this beginning as hazing and then moving into something else. Mm-hmm. You were watching that news conference. What went through your mind when you heard that word repeated more than once?
I think it shows the issue with people using that term, which is that it's almost chalked up to boys will be boys, or it's just kids messing about, and not really expressing the severity of these actions. And what was even more dangerous too is that more so than when I went through what I did at McGill, there are now videos of these things circulating on the internet, which didn't happen in my case, and those things can pop up forever, essentially.
If you had a chance to talk to the whole grade, get them all in a room, what would you say to them? Witnesses, perpetrators?
One thing about St. Mike's is they have very supportive alumni, and it's a very close-knit group of people, but they need to understand the reality of this. And I think you'd have to run through, okay, here's how this is a crime, here's how videotaping is a crime, and that's just not bullying, hazing, or initiations.
And so my last question is, there is at least one victim out there who's probably still struggling and will for a long time. What, if you get a chance to talk to him, what would you say?
You're not alone. There are way more people who have gone through this than anyone cares to admit. You may feel alone, you may feel angry, afraid. That's all perfectly normal. It'll take time, but you'll get through this, and there are others out there who know how you feel, and if you ever need to speak, we'll be there for you.
You mean that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, D'Arcy, thanks very much.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate that. We should mention D'Arcy is the son of Bob McKeown, a co-host of CBC's investigative program, The Fifth Estate.